for me. So, the biggest and crappiest question I get is, does weight training stunt your growth? Because the people that we deal with, they're younger athletes. And, I think I love working with athletes, because one of my favorite coaches, he said that the youngest athletes deserve the best coaches. And so that's when I was like, you know what? I do want to work with athletes. You can't do it because, well, you can do it, but there's very like small fraction of people out there that actually do need a strength and conditioning coach that at a professional level, because they've already got one. So, I was like, let's work with young kids. And then the roadblock always hit is, oh, they shouldn't be in the gym because it's going to stunt their growth. Can you address that for us?
Well, let's say the German anatomist Wolff, there's a thing called Wolff's Law, which was written in the late 1800s, and it still exists. It's the same thing. It's universal. It's basically that it relates to a thing which we call the SAID principle, the specific adaptation to an imposed demand. Wolff's Law talks about the remodeling of bone as when you apply a stress to it, when muscles pull on bone, or when you impose loads upon the bone, it adapts to it. Now, that then says that your bone's going to adapt to loading in a positive fashion. So one of the things we know about any of the bones we use, whether vertebrae, whether they're femurs, whatever they are, when they're loaded, they get stronger. There's no accordion-like compression issue with these things at all. Now, sure enough, I'm not going to get a kid to do 1 rep max stuff, because I don't think there's any weight classes or yearly classes in that anyway for really young kids. You're just going to impose a great demand, and that means that person's bones will then always be stronger anyway, because the stronger you build your body during your youth, the better you are as an adult. But I think the confusion there is probably people think of gravity, as in, okay, I put this weight on my back, that means I'm compressing myself down towards the center of the earth. That's probably just the logic that's behind the thing that is absolutely entirely untrue. And, even in regard to, perhaps we look at some of the peripheral things which we could use here, which might be how our body responds to running in back injuries, for example, too. That we know that actually running is quite useful for the recovery of discs, because it increases the nutrient transport across discs due to its cyclical compression. So there's so many positive things about compression that actually are important to the body to adapt to. So no, there's nothing to do with compression of the body and shortening a person's stature by putting a weight on their back.
Exactly. And
Hey,
one of the things
and
is,
don't forget, we've also all seen Conan the Barbarian, and remember, as a kid, he has to walk around the wheel all the time carrying that damn thing, and he got really big.
exactly. And how can you argue with Conan? The age-old story of Milo is also a testament to that also.
Yeah, there it
Carrying
is.
around the calf, until it becomes a bull as he grows into a man. And, that sort of like story of, I know you could call it progressive overload.
That's what we
But
figure.
yeah, that's what you figure. And so and we can kind of see it in sprinting, because the top end sprinters will be putting in about 3 times their body weight into the ground every step they take, and, maybe even over that. So it's like, we got our kids sprinting, and they're putting probably quite a good deal of, pressure into the ground every step they take. And if that was true, if we would, the amount of load that goes into our body would compress the bones, cause some sort of stunting of the growth, it would happen when you run. Not when you're in the
Exactly.
gym.
I think what you bring up there is really good too, is it probably is very positive for a kid to be doing the weight training and to be running and to be involved in these sorts of activities, because it'll actually make the bones more resistant to gravity. Hence, you probably make sure as an adult, you'll end up being, well, as an older adult perhaps, instead of people there used to be a saying, you ever seen a tall grandmother? Okay, because they tend to compress.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
if we make their bones stronger as youths and as kids, we'll probably get more resilient adults.
That's interesting, because our generation, or, around sort of our generations, I know we saw crossover a few different generations here, but it's like we're kind of the generation that's really been into training and that kind of thing. And because we come from quite a lucky generation where we're sort of blessed with having all the benefits that we have because our grandparents have gone through all the stuff they have, so we're able to sort of go to the gym and enjoy ourselves and that kind of thing. And I don't know what it's going to be like when we're quite old, and what the condition of older people are going to be in the future.
It'll be an interesting epidemiological study to find out. But these things will be here.
Yeah, because my grandma hasn't done virtually anything. She's also a housewife, and which is awesome, and she has had two knee replacements and all this sort of stuff. And so that kind of buys into that stupid argument. It's like, oh, don't squat, it's bad for your knees, or whatever. It's like, you know what, if my grandma's going to end up with two knee replacements and she hasn't done anything, I'm going to squat, I'm going to enjoy my knees, and if they go, they go.
Well, it really is that the more you use it, the more you'll tend to find that it adapts really well. We
Mm.
tend to find that arthritis occurs most commonly in the joints that aren't very weight bearing, such as your hands, and perhaps even if you looked at your neck, is going to be obviously higher. The weight bearing of your neck is about 8 kilos, and that's your skull and head's weight. But yeah, hands, and they will be the first places that tend to get arthritis. They're not weight bearing joints.
There you go. And try to convince someone to train the neck, you know, far out.
It
So,
has its place for the right athlete.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm a big advocate for that. I like my athletes doing bridges, especially if they're, neck bridges, like the
Mm.
wrestlers do, especially if they're, rugby athletes.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the first things we get them in there doing, because it's not one of the first things, but it's we sort of go from the gradual knees on hands and then head into the ground and rock back and forth kind of deal. And then we sort of go from taking the hands away, then we go up onto the toes and then the head, and then we do the reverse bridge, and, in the similar fashion. And yeah, and, no one's ever hurt their neck, and I haven't had any concussions. So that's been good. You know?
Well, yes, we look at a lot of the Eastern Bloc wrestling training, and you'll see that's just mandatory.
Yeah. Yeah.